No, I choose people who don't want to be written about on the whole, whose lives are shrouded in mystery, and they want to hide their secrets, and I just love...
The internet barely had time to catch its breath. When Tom Bower, the man the tabloids call Britain's most feared biographer, struck again, he didn't just drop a bomb. He blew up an entire minefield under two of the royal family's most controversial names, Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew. And like clockwork, it started with the tiniest spark, a short, 32-second teaser. No context, no title. Just Tom Bower, leaning back, fingers steepled, eyes sharp.
The king has been far too lenient with him. And that it's not just now this sex case.
That unmistakable glint in his eye, the one that says something big is about to go down. Then he dropped the line. A single line that hit the internet like a lightning bolt. People would be shocked to learn how closely intertwined certain royal figures truly were. And who benefited? That was it. No names, no details, just enough to send every newsroom into chaos and every royal watcher into a full-blown detective mode. Within minutes, the speculation machine roared to life. Hashtags were trending before the clip even finished. And in the middle of it all, two names were flying around like burning coals. Meghan Markle, Prince Andrew. Two figures who, on the surface, couldn't be further apart. But suddenly, the internet was pulling their names together, like magnets in a storm. What did Bower mean? What connection was he hinting at? And why now? Theories erupted everywhere. Some said hidden rivalries. Others whispered royal finances, palace politics, or decades-old tensions. But the theory that went truly viral, the one that set the internet ablaze, was that Bower was about to expose a chapter of behind-the-scenes royal chaos involving both Meghan and Andrew.
That there are two truths. The first truth is that the conversation, I'm told and I believe, was very early on in their relationship when Harry is bowled over.
The palace, it seemed, had buried this story under mountains of silence. And as the world screamed for answers, Tom Bower offered nothing. That only made the hype explode by sunrise. TikTok, X, and every gossip forum were consumed. Screenshots of the teaser were reposted over 5 million times. Reaction videos went ballistic. Even US late-night hosts joined in, joking and speculating, but inside royal circles, it was no joke. Sources say the palace went into silent damage control mode. Staffers reported tense meetings, emergency briefings, and hushed corridor whispers. Whenever Bower speaks, people listen. One royal aide allegedly whispered, "The palace prepares for impact." But no one was ready for how fast this would go nuclear. Just 2 hours after the teaser went viral, Bower struck again. This time, he dropped an extended excerpt from his upcoming project during a live broadcast. Still no names, but one sentence froze every royal reporter mid-tweet. It is astonishing how events thought to be disconnected were in truth shaped by the same hand. The internet wasn't just on fire anymore, it was melting. Commentators tore that sentence apart word by word. Who was the same hand? Which events was he talking about? And why did the timing feel almost too perfect? Landing right in the middle of chaos.
Yes, it is a bad look, especially for Prince Andrew, because he has always denied having any sort of sexual contact with Epstein's girls.
Just as Meghan faced a storm of PR trouble and Prince Andrew came under fresh media scrutiny, the line set the rumor mills spinning. Meghan's critics were certain it was about her. Andrew's critics were just as convinced it was about him. And the rest of the world? They were screaming that Bower was hinting at a bombshell linking both of them. The frenzy hit warp speed when insiders claimed Meghan's team went ballistic. They were scrambling, calling anyone who might know what Bower was about to drop, terrified of the fallout. Meanwhile, Prince Andrew's camp reportedly went completely silent, a sign insiders say that the walls were shaking. As speculation spiraled, media outlets dove into archives, cross-referencing timelines like detectives on a mission. They pulled up overlapping charity events, old palace memos, anything hinting at tension. But nothing concrete appeared, nothing that matched the ominous vibe of Bower's words. Then the first leak hit. A whistleblower from a production studio claimed that Bower's new material would shock both American and British audiences and expose connections nobody even realized existed. The leak spread like wildfire. Headlines exploded, commentators went wild, and YouTubers churned out 20-minute breakdowns faster than ever. In Montecito, sources say Meghan was pacing, phones ringing nonstop.
About his relationship. And there was no compulsion for him to do it. And that not only...
Lawyers and PR advisors on high alert. She felt targeted. One insider said she even believed Bauer was obsessed with her, and this only confirmed it. Meanwhile, at Royal Lodge, Prince Andrew's residence, the mood was grim. Staff whispered he'd been warned. This story could reopen wounds the family thought were closed, but nothing could prepare them for what came next. Tom Bauer, watching the global hysteria unfold, finally broke his silence in a new interview snippet online. And this time, no riddles. He leaned into the camera and dropped a line that sent shockwaves across the royal world. "This is the chapter the palace hoped I would never write." The world gasped. Comment sections exploded. News anchors cut into programming. Suddenly, it wasn't a question of if Meghan and Prince Andrew would face a storm. It was how massive it would be, how long it would rage, and who would take the hardest hit. Whatever Bauer had uncovered, both camps were bracing for impact, and the palace, they knew one thing for sure. Tom Bauer never teases lightly. When he speaks, something huge is coming, and this time it wasn't just huge, it was seismic.
I was shocked at just how thin-skinned Harry is. You know, Meghan I almost understood. She's a Hollywood B-list to be charitable actress. She was a social climber. Her whole thing is about image, so I can see why she's so easy to upset.
Two of the most controversial figures in modern royal history were standing directly in the path. The reaction to Tom Bauer's latest revelations was instant, electric. The royal world couldn't ignore it no matter how hard they tried. Within minutes of his interview hitting the airwaves, the internet exploded. Commentators were refreshing feeds in disbelief as clips spread across social platforms faster than anyone in Windsor or Montecito could even react. And yet, beneath the outrage, something darker was buzzing: fear. Not because Bauer had accused anyone of a crime, he hadn't, but because he'd hit a nerve the monarchy had been desperately trying to keep calm for years. His claims weren't blunt accusations, they were surgical. Interpretations and context delivered with the precision of a man who spent decades peeling apart the myths of the powerful. This time, two of the most polarizing figures in modern royal history were directly in his crosshairs. Sources close to Buckingham Palace insist the institution wasn't blindsided. They knew Bauer's book was coming. They expected sharp commentary on the press tour. But no one could have predicted how the public would seize the most explosive lines and turn them into viral fever. What was meant to be thoughtful commentary on public behavior, media manipulation, and the gravitational pull of scandal mutated within hours into breathless online theories, think pieces, and endless YouTube debate videos.
I do, and I think it has divided the nation and made us all, many of us, very unhappy on either side of the argument. I just found that Harry and Meghan, having said that they were setting up in California to spread wellness and love and sincerity, have done the exact opposite. They have done.
Every angle, every phrase was being dissected. Meanwhile, inside Montecito, silence first, then chaos. Insiders whisper that Meghan was stunned, pacing the house, fuming, demanding to know how Bauer got hold of anecdotes she thought were tightly controlled or buried under layers of legal protection. Harry, by contrast, was reportedly exhausted, caught between fury and helplessness. As another wave of scrutiny crested toward their home, he knew this one couldn't be stopped. One insider shared, it didn't hurt any less across the Atlantic. Andrew's corner of the royal sphere wasn't any calmer. While Bauer's commentary focused on reputation, optics, and the fallout from past decisions rather than new wrongdoing, it was enough to reignite debate. Past staffers immediately locked down palace communications. No comments, official statements, everything on pause, but the damage was already done. Royal experts dissected Bauer's claims with relentless precision. Live stream panels lit up YouTube, and longtime commentators who rarely agreed on anything suddenly spoke the same language. Tom Bauer had hit a pressure point. Whether people loved Meghan, disliked Andrew, or were just exhausted by royal drama altogether, it didn't matter. Bauer had opened a new chapter of debate, one fueled by the uncomfortable mix of celebrity, monarchy, fame obsession, generational trauma, and public expectation.
A series dedicated to dissecting the most riveting royal scandals in history. This week, I'm joined by Tom Bauer, author of Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors, the defining book on Meghan Markle.
As the frenzy reached fever pitch, something subtler, but no less important, was happening behind palace walls. Quiet, deliberate, strategic moves. Sources familiar with royal operations described it as the tightening of ropes before a storm. Meetings were held. Communications teams combed through every script. Senior advisors scrutinized timing, context, optics, always the optics. Because here's the thing, Bauer's revelations were technically just interpretation and commentary, but the public reaction had become a beast of its own. Screens were lighting up across continents, theories exploding across social feeds, and suddenly the monarchy wasn't just reacting, they were bracing. Every move, every statement, every whisper was now part of a careful strategy to manage a storm Tom Bauer had unleashed, and the world was watching with bated breath. The storm was only getting started. By now, every scroll, every notification, every news alert carried Tom Bauer's fingerprints. His words weren't just headlines. They were sparks, and the tinder had already been laid. Analysts, influencers, royal obsessives, even casual scrollers, all were pulled into the frenzy. Every rumor, every hint, every historical footnote suddenly mattered. Inside Montecito, the tension was almost tangible. Meghan reportedly couldn't sit still, pacing rooms with phones glued to her ear, calling lawyers, PR advisors, anyone who might have a clue. She was determined to get ahead of the narrative before it could take a life of its own. One source said, she felt like Bauer was circling, waiting for a misstep. Every detail mattered. Harry, meanwhile, was watching the fallout with a mix of frustration and exhaustion, knowing that no amount of prep could stop the tidal wave heading their way. Across the Atlantic, Royal Lodge was tense too. Staff whispered that Prince Andrew was steeling himself for the storm.
A stereotype. I think that would now not occur. I think there were various things about her sexual life which I dropped out on the grounds of privacy law.
Past controversies that were thought to be buried now threatened to resurface in ways the palace hadn't predicted. Advisors scrambled to review past interviews, official statements, and even old correspondence, trying to anticipate Bauer's next move. Sources say it was a high-wire act of damage control, orchestrated in near silence but with full force. Bauer, meanwhile, seemed to revel in every reaction. Every clip, every leaked line, every fiery debate online was fuel for the narrative he was carefully building. Observers noted that his style wasn't just about shocking revelations. It was methodical. Each tease, each half-statement was calculated to maximize impact without ever breaking legal or factual lines. And with Meghan and Andrew, he had chosen two figures whose stories were already combustible. The internet didn't wait. Twitter, X, TikTok, Instagram. Every platform became a pressure cooker of speculation. Fans dissected every gesture, every word, every rumored connection. Commentators claimed to detect patterns in years-old charity events. YouTubers made hour-long Bauer breakdowns, mapping timelines and palace whispers like detectives in a thriller series. The story had become a cultural event, a feeding frenzy of curiosity, outrage, and obsession. Inside palace corridors, the moves were quieter, but no less intense. Advisors convened in hush-hush rooms, going over media strategies, preparing statements, and reviewing potential fallout scenarios. Scripts were rewritten, talking points revised, and contingency plans created for every possible narrative twist. Sources familiar with the operation describe it as
Book and in the Oprah Winfrey interviews and by Harry in the Apple interviews can forgive him. I mean, he'd have to eat so much humble pie.
choreographed chaos, a disciplined effort to stay one step ahead of a storm the palace could not fully control. Meanwhile, speculation spilled over into the personal realm. Social media lit up with theories about how Bauer's revelations could shift relationships, alliances, and reputations. Questions swirled about whether past tensions between Meghan and Andrew were more than just public perception. Some analysts suggested that decades-old decisions, strategic silences, and behind-the-scenes maneuvering were finally being forced into the light. And yet, Bauer remained almost eerily calm. For him, the drama wasn't collateral, it was the point. Every leak, every hint, every carefully timed teaser was part of a narrative crescendo. The public was no longer just watching, they were participating. Every theory, every tweet, every video became an extension of the story he was telling. By the end of the week, the frenzy had reached a point where no one could predict the next move. The palace had deployed its silent defenses. Meghan and Andrew's teams were on full alert. And across social media, every rumor, every interpretation, and every snippet of history was being debated, dissected, and broadcast like it was breaking news. Tom Bauer had done more than provoke gossip. He had rewritten the way the world watched the monarchy. And for two of the most controversial figures in recent history, there was no hiding, no retreat, and no end in sight to the storm he had unleashed. Royal institutions, perhaps more than any in the world, know that perception often outweighs fact. And in this case, The media storm became a wildfire that couldn't be controlled. Speculation exploded in every direction. Some argued Meghan would fire back with a bold counter-narrative. Others thought she would stay silent, letting allies quietly defend her. Meanwhile, questions swirled about Prince Andrew. Would he retreat into the shadows, avoiding the spotlight entirely? Or would he quietly lean on palace intermediaries to manage the fallout? The guessing game was endless. And Tom Bower? He remained entirely unshaken. In a follow-up appearance, he doubled down, not with new claims, but with the same icy composure.
Of their experience.
I understand. Well, because I sift it through. I don't put in stuff which isn't true and can't be checked. And also, you know, I had some admiration for Meghan. She succeeded quite well in her life and her ambitions.
His reputation spoke for itself. Calmly, he said, "If certain people don't like the reflection they see, that's not my problem." Within the hour, the line had been replayed thousands of times on TikTok. Then something unexpected happened. A source inside Montecito revealed Meghan had begun drafting a personal response. Not a legal threat, not an official statement, but a carefully curated message designed to reclaim the narrative. She aimed to frame Bower's commentary as obsession and bias, a decades-long pattern of targeting women who challenged traditional power. She wanted to flip the scrutiny back on him. Whether that strategy would work, that was anyone's guess. While her team debated messaging, something far more dangerous began bubbling online. Resurfaced clips, old interviews, forgotten footage, and half-remembered conversations, all now being re-examined through the lens Bower had created? Every word Meghan and Andrew had ever said in public suddenly had new weight, new meaning. Video editors stitched together montages, podcasters churned out hour-long dissections. Royal Watch accounts racked up millions of views connecting dots that weren't even dots before. Interpretation became theory, theory became narrative, narrative became viral, and the palace? True to form, its response was disciplined detachment. No words, no whispers, no hints of endorsement or denial. The oldest rule in the royal playbook: don't add oxygen to a fire. Yet even this strategy seemed increasingly fragile given the scale of the inferno. Behind closed doors, tension between the Sussex camp and palace advisors was reportedly intense. One advisor described the atmosphere as radioactive. Another claimed the monarchy was done being caught in crossfire. Meanwhile, Bower stayed entirely unbothered. Some might say smug. An editor who spoke to him the day after the broadcast described him as calm, sipping tea, refusing to change a single word. "He's lived through dozens of storms," the editor said. "What people forget is that he writes for the public record, not for royal approval. The institution has no power over him." Perhaps that was what frightened Meghan and Andrew most. Unlike tabloid gossip, palace whispers, or social media debates, Bower's work endures. It lives on bookshelves, in libraries, in documentary archives, woven into cultural memory. And now, with his latest commentary igniting the public imagination, it was clear. The story wasn't ending. It was just beginning. By now, the storm had a life of its own. Every scroll, every feed, every notification was charged with Bower's words. The story was no longer just his. It belonged to the public, the commentators, and the social media armies dissecting every syllable. Every clip, every quote, every nuance was magnified, twisted, and spread like wildfire. Inside Montecito, the tension was almost tangible. Meghan's team worked around the clock, drafting statements, coordinating with lawyers, and preparing talking points for allies. Sources say she paced the rooms, checking drafts, rewriting lines, and weighing every word for maximum impact. She wanted to reclaim control, to turn Bower's narrative back on him. One insider whispered, "She knows the eyes of the world are watching, and she's not going to let him write the story alone." Across the pond, Royal Lodge was no calmer. Prince Andrew reportedly held emergency briefings with senior staff, reviewing past statements and reinforcing communication chains. Advisors combed through decades of interviews, charity appearances, and palace memos, searching for anything that could soften the blow or prepare for potential attacks. Sources described the palace as walking a tightrope over a volcano. Meanwhile, Bower remained the picture of unshakable composure. He watched the chaos unfold with a cool detachment, letting the public, the media, and even the palace sweat over his words. Each carefully timed snippet, each subtle tease pushed the narrative further into the frenzy. For Bower, every viral clip, every breakdown video, every heated debate was proof that the storm he created had legs of its own. Social media, as always, was relentless. Fans connected dots across decades, Scholars revisited old archives, and Royal Watch YouTubers churned out hour-long deep dives with annotations, timelines, and commentary. Even casual scrollers were pulled into the chaos, debating everything from charity events to palace protocols. Interpretation became theory. Theory became narrative. Narrative became global obsession. Behind the scenes, the palace tightened operations. Meetings ran late into the night. Communication scripts were rehearsed, and every public statement was scrutinized for tone, timing, and potential fallout. Advisors monitored social media trends like intelligence analysts tracking a storm. Every clip of Meghan, Andrew, or even Bauer was dissected for impact. Every whisper, every minor leak, every hint had to be accounted for. Yet the real power lay in the endurance of Bauer's work. Unlike fleeting headlines, his books, interviews, and documentaries endure. They live on shelves, in archives, and in cultural memory, ensuring that his version of events lasts far beyond the latest viral clip. Meghan and Andrew's teams could react, but they could not erase it. And now, with the world hanging on every word, every frame, every suggestion, the question was no longer if the storm would strike. It was how far it would reach, who would be hit hardest, and what secrets would finally emerge. One thing was clear. Tom Bauer had turned a simple book promotion into a seismic event, and the royal world would never be the same again. If you watch this and have thoughts, drop them in the comments below. If this breakdown made you see things differently, hit subscribe and stay locked in for more deep dives like this. Don't forget to like the video and share it with someone who needs to see it.